Your gates just means like your city. Okay. Today we're going to start on the top of Daf Dalet, 24. 24a. The Mishnah, yeah. Okay, we've quoted this Mishnah before. Thank Hashem that we're able to learn every day. And this chus of learning, we should have the Beis Hamikdash immediately. For Shlema, for anyone that needs. For all those that need. The Mishnah starts like this. Isha shenadra b'nazir. If a woman takes a vow that she's going to be a Nazir, v'frishas behemta, and she separates her sacrifices. Well, the sacrifices that she's going to bring, we're not talking about that she's tamei. So before we were talking about the two birds and the asham. Now we're talking about a regular Nazira or Nazir. It has to bring 3 sacrifices: a female sheep for a chatas, a male sheep for an ayla, and then a ram, which is also a male sheep, but it's older. An older.
First year,
young, the first year, I think.
And under.
Right. Then the ram is a shlamim, is a peace offering. So we have a sin offering, a burnt offering, and a peace offering. Those are the 3 sacrifices. So she separates the sacrifices, thinking everything is going well. And then the husband comes along and annuls her naziris. So now she has these sacrifices and no naziris. It's off. Remember, we had 2 ways of looking at what the husband does. Does he retroactively take it off, or does he stop it from there? We sort of said that he cancels it from then and on. Whatever the case is, she's not obligated to bring them now. If these animals were not hers, they were the husband's animals, and she just has the right to use his animals for things that she needs, right? Let's say she has the right to do that, for things that she needs. So over here, she doesn't need it. It's not considered something that she needs. So these animals can just go out and go back into the barn and graze over there. Everything's good. Nothing happened. The animals that she designated, that she separated, were not even hers. She had no rights to do that. You can't be mocked or something that belongs to someone else, you know. If those animals were hers, so then those animals are consecrated. Now the question is, what's she going to do with them when she doesn't have to bring them? So some of them have a problem. Some of them are fine. You can bring them anyway. So for example, here, the chatas is tamas. The sin offering, we said before, and when we quoted this, we said that we had 2 options. Either the whole thing is a mistake, and it was never really designated because the husband uproots it from the beginning, right? And then why do we say the chatas tamas, right? It should be nothing, because it was a total mistake. She was never a nazira, and for that we said that even though she was never a nazira, but the fact that she still took the vow. Because of the vow, she wasn't supposed to take the vow. We quoted Rabbi Elazar Kapar. The other way is that no, she was a nazira, and now she can't bring it. It's like a sin offering where the owners died, where the owners had atonement already. The owners had atonement already. Then what do you do with this one? She doesn't need to bring it now. It's as if the owner was atoned already. So what you do with this chatas is you have to leave it to die. Can't eat it, can't bring it. So yeah, there's nothing to do. Not if it cancels it from then and on. But if it would go back, then it would be that she did nothing. If it would be retroactive, then it would be that she did nothing. That's the way we learned it. What
She
about
could still go to a chacham? Sorry. she could go to Chacham and have it retroactively done, and then it would be okay.
Yeah, she can actually. I think if you go to Chacham, you can even remove directly from the animals. Besides for removing the Naziris, you can remove what you designate. I think the Chacham is able to do that, but she can also remove the Naziris, and then that's the Chacham is retroactive. For Ayla Tikra Vayla, but the Ayla is going to be brought as an Ayla offering because an Ayla could be a gift. Now, we had before a machlekes, the Rabbanan and Rabbi Yishmael, if the Ayla is considered a present, a gift, or if it's considered an atonement. So Taisus here speaks out that whole machlekes was only when she was tamei. A nazir that becomes tamei, there's a machlekes Rabbi Yishmael and the Rabbanan. What's the status of that Ayla? But here, it's not a nazir that's tamei. Here, it's a regular nazir. And over here, everyone agrees that the Ayla is a gift offering. And the gift could be given whenever. So it's not dependent on if she's still in the Nazir or not. Shlamim, the peace offering, Tikkur Shlamim, is brought as a peace offering. Now, the peace offering is normally, it's called the El Nazir, the Riyam of the Nazir. There's a few interesting halachas. One of them is that it's waved together with the breads. Together with the breads are waved, it comes along with bread. Other thing is that it has a leg that's cooked together with the animal. The whole animal is cooked whole, and in a big pot. And the leg is called the Zraya B'Shela. It's given to the Kohen. Now, it's unique to this to the ram of the Nazir. A regular peace offering does not have the breads. It's not waved, and it doesn't have that leg that's given to the Kohen. Well, and it's not cooked together. There's what's given to the Kohen. I think the chazav v'shaik thigh in the chest is given to the Kohen. Okay, whatever the case is, regarding this shlamim, there's one other detail I left out. The regular shlamim has 2 days and a night to eat. Day that it's brought, that night, and the whole following next day. The El Nazir, the ram of the Nazir, which is a shlamim, has a limitation on that. It's more restrictive. It only has that day and that night. The following day, it's already prohibited. Yom v'layla. Well, what's going to be with this shlamim? Because it started off as a El Nazir, and now you're bringing it as a shlamim. So it goes like this. Nechalam liyom echad. The limitation of the El Nazir, of the ram of the Nazir, is applied to it, and you only have 1 day and 1 night. But you don't have the obligation to bring the bread, which also means that you don't have to wave it, which also means that you don't have to do the that extra arm, the leg of the Nazir that's given to the Kohen. You don't have that as well. What are you going to do with it? I guess you're going to separate it. It's going to be usher. So in other words, we take all the stringencies of it, and we don't have the leniencies. Take the stringency; it's the limitation for 1 day. You don't have to bring that extra bread. You do have that leniency of not the extra bread, and you also the arm is going to be usher. Front leg of the so it's going to be usher, but you don't give it to the Kohen necessarily. Okay. You don't cook it together. That's what it is. You don't cook it together. If you would cook it together, it would be a problem. Remember the Gemara in Chulin.
It adds to what has
It's
to be
considered more holy than the rest of it.
Let's say 7 all has to be eaten that day.
Right.
I thought it doesn't include the entire animal.
Yeah.
So.
And the breads.
Yeah. So it's not always at this forearm. I forget the right or the left one.
No, that's only by El Nazir. It's a special by the El Nazir. And the Gemara Chulin wanted to learn out, how do we know 1 in 60? The Gemara says we learn it from the El Nazir, because that the meat on that arm is going to be 1/60th of the rest of the animal. Then it was discussion if it's 1/60th, including the bones, or if you include the bones or not, then it would be 1 in 100. Okay, Next case. Let's say she designates the money for the karbanis, but she doesn't designate how much per karban. Just takes some money and she puts it aside. This will be for my karbanis. Then the husband goes along and annuls the nazirus. So of course, if the money was his money, then of course the rule would be that she did nothing because she doesn't have rights to his money. She only has rights to his money for things that she needs, but not for something that's unnecessary. So we would say that this is unnecessary because she's not a nazir anymore, and what she did was nothing. But if it was her money, then Yiplul and Nadava, then this money is used to bring other oilas, other burnt offerings that are brought on the Mizbeach. Mayus Mifarashin, let's say she actually designates how much money per sacrifice, and she says, this is going to be for the chatas, this money is going to be for the oilah, this is going to be for the shlamim. So then, the chatas, the money for the chatas, yel chaliyam melech, you can't do anything with it. Just like the chatas, you have to leave for dial. So the money, you can't do anything. You throw it into the Dead Sea. Why specifically the Dead Sea? I don't know. Over here it's not called the Dead Sea, it's called the Salt Sea. Oh. And that's the you're not supposed to have any benefit from that money, but if you do have benefit from that money, it's not considered a violation of Me'ilah. It's only rabbinic, and even if it's biblical, it still doesn't have the laws of Me'ilah. The Me'ilah, what do you do with the money that was beef for the Oilah? You have the Oilah, just like the actual animal. So basically, it corresponds to what if it would be, if the animal would be designated, that's what corresponds to that would be if the money is designated. You bring it as a burnt offering, but then it would have the rules of Me'ilah because this is an actual sacrifice where you're not allowed to have personal benefit from something that belongs to the temple. The Mei Shlamim, what do you do with the money of the peace offering? Very easy. Exactly as if it would be the animal, that it would have the time limit of the El Nazir, of the Riyam of the Nazir, but it would have the status of a shlamim, and you don't need the breads, and you would cook the leg separately. Okay. Gemara now discusses the Mishnah. It says, "Man tana debal le mishtabila." We're saying that if it's the husband's money, you say what she did was nothing. Now I explain, based on the Gemara's answer, one of the Gemara's answers, that even if she has rights to the husband's money, but she only has rights to the husband's money to use it for things that are necessary, not for unnecessary things. If the husband has an obligation to bring her sacrifices when she is required to bring sacrifices, then here, these sacrifices, without getting into if it's necessary or not, these sacrifices would be real sacrifices. She has rights to that money. The Gemara later is going to say that no, because he annulled it, so it's not totally necessary. It wasn't necessary. Where do we have this concept of does she have rights to the husband's money for sacrifices? This has to do with if there's a sacrifice which is called an oila b'yored. Depends on her income, on her what bracket she's in. Does she have to bring a rich man's sacrifice? That would be an animal. Does she have to bring a middle sacrifice? That would be a bird. Or a poor man's sacrifice? That would be a meal offering. So let's say her husband is rich and she's poor. So if she has rights to the husband's money, if the husband is obligated to bring her sacrifices for her, if she's required, then she has to bring the rich man's sacrifice. If she has to use her own money, then she can bring the poor. There's a machlekes in that scenario if she's considered rich or poor based on the rights that she has to the husband. Does she have the rights to use the husband's money or not? Yeah. Yeah. Now, provide for her, but the question is if that also means her sacrifices that she has to bring. Yeah, but maybe she doesn't have that income to bring the sacrifices. So it depends if she has access to those funds for this. So Mantana de Bale Mishtabila, who's the author that holds that the husband is not required to bring her sacrifices, and therefore, when she does designate the husband's sacrifices, then when she does designate the sacrifice, it's considered nothing. This is the view of the Rabbanan. Because if you think it's Rabbi Yehuda, then why is it considered nothing that the animal could just go back and graze in the barn and amongst the flock? He had an obligation to bring the sacrifice. This is a real sacrifice. Tanya, as was taught in the Brisa, what's the source of this machlekes? Rabbi Yehuda says, Adam Mevi Karban Asher Alishte. A man brings the wealthy man sacrifice for his wife because he's obligated to bring it for his wife, and he's wealthy, so he brings the wealthy man. And also all her sacrifices that she's obligated to bring, the husband is going to bring them. Shekach kasavla, because that's what he wrote in the Ksuba. Kol achrayas islach alayim min kadmas dana. Min kadmas dana means from before now. Any responsibility that there is that you have on me from before now. Now, I noticed that there were two approaches to this.
Well, does that mean he becomes responsible for her debts?
Yeah, for her debts. Now, here it says, Taisa says, this is specifically referring to obligation offerings, like for example, if she gives birth or if she was a zava. But if she takes a donation, takes a vow on herself to bring a sacrifice, or she wants to give a donation, then we're not going to say that the husband has to bring 1,000 offerings for her every day because she decided to donate that. Sometimes you hear from the ladies section, the ladies calling out for the aliyahs and if they're looking for a shidduch, that's a good approach. Then Taisa says that it's only the ones that she's obligated after they're married. He doesn't have to pay up ones that were before they're married. I'm not sure what it means. Min kadmas dana. Min kadmas dana means from before now, right? From before now, which means even the debts from prior to the marriage. How do they translate it there?
Beforehand.
From beforehand. It sounds like even before the marriage. I'm not sure how the is it then adds that in. Okay.
If that's the case, then why do Rabbanim sometimes suggest a written agreement that the husband will become responsible for the debts that she had before marriage, if it happens automatically?
I guess because of the that says that it doesn't. Yeah.
Just cover the bases.
Marries her anyway.
Kadima in Hebrew can mean to move forward also, right? I don't know if that's just modern Hebrew.
Yeah, the min kadmas dana means from before now, I think. Yeah. I know of someone that had a lot of debt because he had a business that didn't work out. And he was a young bacher, like 22 or something. So had a lot of debts. He was going on a shidduch. He asked me, do I have to tell her about this debt? I didn't know the answer. I asked the rabbi. So the rabbi said, by the third date, you should tell her. Anyway, they get engaged. And about a year later, I get a call from a relative of this couple, of the girl, actually, a relative of the girl.
They're engaged, but not married.
They got engaged, they got married.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And this rabbi, calls me. He says, I have to hear about this person. There's a lot of debt and there's things. So what happened? I told him he was supposed to say at the third day, something's wrong. Anyway, he said, you're right. Let me get back to, I don't know this. Anyway, calls me back. What happened was they went out 2 times. They're ready to get engaged. So he says, I think I should tell you something first. He says, no, don't worry. Anyway, they went to the L'chaim and that was it.
He never told her.
he told her, I guess, after they were engaged, but they never had a third date. Okay,
Her assets not necessarily become her husband's when she gets married.
right,
This is a problem. There's special halachas about this.
right,
Because in mishpat.
Right.
Because it creates the problem that she borrows money and she owes it, and it was lent to her on the basis that she has a wealthy woman she can repay.
Right. Right.
And now she gets married and her husband's poor.
Right.
And she can insulate her debts.
Right.
Right. That's the way it works.
okay. So far, what we're trying to say here is that it would have to be the opinion of the Rabbanan, because according to Rabbi Yehuda, the husband's responsible for her sacrifices. And so therefore, when we're saying over here that when she designates sacrifice, she had no right to do that. According to Rabbi Yehuda, she does have right to do that, to designate the sacrifice. And therefore, the sacrifice would be real sacrifice. So that wouldn't fit with our Mishnah. Our Mishnah has to be the Rabbanan. Rava said, who said that? That was Rav Chisda, right? Rav Chisda had, lately, in Masechtas Nazir, has been attributing Mishnayos and Brises to different, he's been the one that's coming in the answering up. Who's the author of this? And he fills that in. Rava Amar, Rava says, Rava is a son-in-law of Rav Chisda. Says, Afilu came Rabbi Yehuda. Even though it could be Rabbi Yehuda. Why? Ki mishabedla, when is the husband obligated to come forward and to help her with her sacrifices, to bring their sacrifice for b'mosa de tzrichala? That's only matters that are necessary for her. That's the way we explain it. B'mosa de tzrichala. If it's something that's not necessary, then no, he doesn't have to pay for things that aren't necessary. She has the rights to his sacrifice, to his animals, for her, what she's really obligated in. He has to come forward and help her with that. But if she's not obligated, for example, in our case where the husband absolved annulled the vow of Nazirus, so she's not obligated. So therefore, even though when she designated it, she was, but it turns out that she really isn't. So it becomes nothing. What's wrong?
Funny story.
You mean with the engagement thing?
Yeah.
In that case, it's like
Yeah. Well, it's not. Even though he's not uprooting it, but he's uprooting her rights to his animals, because you only have permission for that for what you need. We got to have another few details on that shortly.
I gotta share this story. So I was married once before. It was very short term. It lasted 3 months. I got it in the okay. It was just a bad mistake. So when I met my wife, I met her in LA. I was sure this was right. We went out twice in LA, and then she came to New York. That was the third date. And I realized this is serious, this woman. I mean, we're married 45 years, obviously. But serious, it's still is. So I'm sitting in the coffee place with her, and I'm saying, how do I tell her? I didn't know about this date rule, that I was married once before, and she's very straight. She was from Sarashir at the time, you know. And so I looked at her, I said, look, I'm sorry, I have to tell you something. And she said, what? I said, I have a skeleton in the closet. I didn't realize that she didn't know what that meant. And like she turned white, she thought I killed somebody, this and that. So I explained what it was. She said, don't worry,
You're lucky.
yeah, but I didn't know the 3-day rule. 3-day.
Ikadamri,
She didn't have a comparable thing.
apparently not.
She had such a tabula rasa.
Yeah.
That was, I used to joke that the government would use her to make sure their ruler was straight.
She was 14 when he married her. What do you expect?
Yeah.
Close to it.
You have to hear there's a tape years ago, it was Purim tape. It's called Purim USA. So on there, Esther is singing this song, and she said it's a boy, of course, singing, but it's she's saying, I can't believe that I'm getting married to this non-Jew. I'm a Beis Yaakov Meidel. I've been Erlich since the cradle, and now and now I'm going to be with this Achashverosh. Anyway, so Ikad Amri. Bad comparison, of course, but Ikad Amri. For those that say Mantana, it's this that we would take this Gemara and do it the opposite. Mantana, who's the author of our Mishnah? So last time we said Rav Chisda says it's the Rabbanan. Now, according to the Ikad Amri, I'm Rav Chisda, Rabbi Yehuda. Rav Chisda is the one that says it's Rabbi Yehuda. How could that fit? It's Rabbi Yehuda. Then the sacrifices should have been designated for real because the husband has the obligation. So we're going to use what we used before from Rava. When he was obligated to come in. Do you have an eraser on the pencil? You have an eraser. When he obligated himself, that's only for things that are necessary. But things that are not necessary, most of the late shichala, but things that are not necessary light. He was never obligated. Di Rabbanan, because if it would be Rabbanan, le'mashabed laklal. It would be the Rabbanan, then he would never be obligated to bring her sacrifices. Now, I don't know what the problem is with that. Who says that he's ever obligated? What's the base over here? Now the Gemara goes on to make this problem even further. But I guess what's happening is, let me guess without looking at it. My guess is like this. What the Gemara means is that the reason why he's not obligated to bring the sacrifices is because he annulled her vows. Sounds like if he did not annul the vows, then he would have been obligated to bring the sacrifices. Now, if he doesn't, but if according to the Rabbanan, even if he doesn't annul the vows, he's not obligated to bring a sacrifice. So what are you telling me? It's because he annulled it that now it has nothing to do with him annulling it. He never had to. So now the Gemara says, okay, according to the Rabbanan, when would be a case when he is actually obligated to bring her sacrifices? How would they come from him? When he actually gives them to her. And if he gives her those animals as a gift, then they would be hers, and then the laws that would apply to her bringing sacrifices would apply. Now that was the way Rav Chisda taught it, according to the second version, that it's really the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. Rava says, now we're saying the opposite now, Afilu Tamer Rabbanan, could really even be the Rabbanan. And so according to the Rabbanan, we said when would be a case when even according to the Rabbanan, he would be obligated to give her that he would give her the sacrifice and they would be hers. Even when he gives her the sacrifices, for example, if he didn't annul the vows, he would have given her the sacrifices, but that would only be for sacrifices that she's required to bring. But if he's not obligated to bring it, if she's not obligated to bring it, then he never gave it to her. He only gave her things that she would be obligated to. So even if we're going to adjust the case a little bit to make it fit with the Rabbanan and say that he does give her sacrifices for her to use when she needs, but it's only when she needs. And it really could be the Rabbanan, because over here she doesn't need it because it got annulled. So it could go both ways. Okay. Now the Gemara goes on. If the animals were hers, which means that the designation was real, so then chatas, if it was the sin offering, tamas, that one has to be put to death. Oila, the burnt offering, tikrav, is actually brought as an oila because they're herd animals. Gemara says, Himinala, where does she have animals from? Amrit mashakansi isha kana baila. I don't know why the Gemara doesn't say that they're nichsei malug, that she brought them into the marriage. Maybe because if she brings them into the marriage, maybe she doesn't have the rights to sell them because the husband has the rights to use the peiros. Maybe there's a problem. I don't remember that from Ksubas. But So where does she have the animals from? The Gemara says, the Gemara continues with the question. It says whatever she acquires, her husband acquires it. Like she's like the arm of the husband, sort of like whatever she gets belongs to the husband. Rav Papa should come to me, Sasser. Rav Papa gives an interesting answer. Talking about where she gets food from her husband, but she doesn't eat all of the food. So she saves it and she sells it off the extras. But my grandmother told me that they would fly my grandfather around to give speeches. He was a lawyer and he would speak about cable television regulation. That's what he was speaking. But anyway, so they would give him a first class ticket. He always traded them in and took regular tickets. So that extra money he would keep. They would keep. So over here, we're talking about where the husband gives her food and she doesn't eat all the food and the rest of it she sells off and she has extra money. When after she collects that a few times, she's able to buy an animal, then that would be for her sacrifice. Tosfos asks that there's a little bit of a problem here.
I don't think that's what the Gemara says. It's not just giving her food. Remember certain things she's allowed to do, like knitting,
Right,
and making collars, this and that.
right.
Here she's allowed to make some extra on this and keep it for herself. That's how I'm. And I thought we learned
Well,
about it today.
Tosfos adds in, he has a question. Tosfos adds in that he has a question. He says, we have a Gemara that says, Moiser Mezeines Lebal, the extra food goes back to the husband. So what are you answering me? That the extra food she's able to take, the extra dough that she didn't need, she's able to take and sell it and then buy an animal with that, it belongs to the husband. So Tosfos gives one answer we're talking about where she tells the husband, or the husband tells her, that you can earn your own income and keep it in exchange for me giving you food. And when she has extra income, so that would be hers. That's what it would mean. It would mean that exchange for the food would be hers. That's one answer. That's what fits with what you're saying. There's another answer that Tosfos brings from the Ram. The Ram is, I believe, Rabbi Meir, one of the son-in-laws of Rashi. Says that when do we say that the extra food goes back to the husband? That's only if the price changes. He gives her $100 a week, but the price of food goes down and it's only $80 a week. So that extra $20 has to go back to the husband. That's when we would say it goes back because the husband gave too much and that's not the cost of the food. But over here, that's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about that the price changed. We're talking about that she actually went on a diet and she's eating less. And now she has extra food. The husband is giving her the same amount. She's just eating less, and that she gets to keep. Yeah. No, because she gets, the price of the food changes and the husband overpaid, gave her too much. Return the change. She can eat it. She doesn't have to eat it. Not too much. That was what a regular person eats, and she has extra. She wants to, save a little or whatever. So that becomes hers.
So she has a set allowance.
Yeah.
That's just this
Yeah,
particular woman.
I'm sorry.
This particular woman has a set allowance, not like. Or
No, I think actually the Mishnah in Ksuba said that there was a set allowance of how much she should get per week.
Okay.
Yeah, it was. I forget what it was based on, but there was a set amount.
It was the original mutual fund. So he made the deposit, she made all the withdrawals.
Okay. Now, Iba Yasema, another teretz. There is another way where she has access to animals, and it's not coming from the husband. And the problem is that if someone gives it to her, then everything that she acquires, the husband acquires. What we say is the akni la acher. Someone else gave it to her. And he said to her, this is on condition that your husband doesn't have access to it. Yeah, we had this case before. only what you put into your mouth is yours. There was remember
You
that?
know, the husband was out of town and somebody was on the woman, and then the husband came back.
That was also, we discussed that as well,
Similar.
right? Okay. Says ha'ila tikavayla v'ashlam tikavchulu. The oila is brought as an oila. That's a burnt offering that could be brought as a gift, and so that doesn't matter, even though she's not a nazira, but she can still bring an oila. And a shlamim tikrav is also brought as a shlamim. Amali Shmuel avua barihi. Shmuel says to avua bari, leite sev al karech. What is karech? Your legs.
Sit on your feet.
Don't sit on your feet. I guess that's how they would sit. They would sit on the ground. Until you explain this to me. This is what I want you to explain to me. Now the question is what Shmuel actually wants to hear. Where does this end? Is Shmuel quoting this whole thing and the end is the very last few lines of this Gemara, the last 6 lines, or is this question somewhere in the middle? So Taisus mentions that there's different options of this. What does he want to know about? It says like this: there's 4 rams that don't need the bread that's brought along with them. Usually a Shalmi Nazir, the El Nazir require the El Nazir, the ram, the peace offering ram of the Nazir requires bread. 4 cases where you don't have to do that. What are those 4 cases?
Korach is the same way as Korach Mishtachah. So
Yeah, it means the
so
legs.
bending on the knees.
Yeah.
And it should maybe be said that way.
Right, something like that. Kara is like the thigh, or the legs.
And Korach means what?
Kara means to bow, but it's borrowed from the same, same root. Shaloi, if it's his, shalah, if it's hers, shalach hamisa, if it's after the owner passed away, shalach kfar, after the owner got an atonement already. Shalah hadamra. We know already what it is when it's her sacrifice. We're talking about when the husband annulled her naziris. She doesn't have to bring the bread if the animal was hers. Shaloi, what about if it's his? Now, if it's his, it can't be that case where it's his, because over there she doesn't have to bring any sacrifice, right? So if it's his, what's the case? Tonight we have another Mishnah. The Ish Mader is B'nai B'Nasir. A man can cause his son to be a Nazir by taking a vow that he should be a Nazir. He vows his son into Naziris. Now the son can reject it, but the father can still make that vow. Says but the woman cannot vow her son into Naziris. Only the father can do this. Gilach, if he then goes and shaves his head, I should go chul krayvim, or his relatives shave his head. Micha ish michul krayvim. Either he protests or his relatives protest. So then, if there was money that was designated for the sacrifice, yipul l'nedava. He's not a Nazir anymore. So that money would just go to the donations. Now, the reason for that is because the money that's designated was never designated chatas, ayla, shlamim. Chatas, of course, can't go to the donation, but it was because in that money, it wasn't specified what is what. So then you can just all give it to the nedava. What do you do with the chatas money that's in there? I don't know. If the money was specified that this amount is for a chatas, this amount is for the shlamim, this amount is for the ayla, then the mei chatas yel chal yam melech, that's a problem because he's not a nazir anymore because he protested against the vow. The mei ayla yavi ayla, that's not a problem. You can give it as a donation. Mayalim behem, and it's considered a real sacrifice. Where there's meila, there's a prohibition to use that for personal benefit. The mei shlamim, if it's the money for the peace offering, yavi shlamim, it's brought as a peace offering, but it doesn't require the bread. So here we have the second case of a shlamim that doesn't require bread. First one was when she becomes a nazir and the husband annuls it, right? Second case is where the husband makes the son a nazir, where a father doesn't have to be a husband. Father makes the son a nazir and then he rejects it. He protests against it. So that would be the second case where the shlamim is brought without the bread. where do you know that after death that you don't have to bring the bread along with the shlamim? The Tanya was taught in a brisa. It's actually has to be adjusted over here. It's supposed to be the Tanan. Tosfos says it's supposed to be. It's a Mishnah.
Who's going to bring it?
So, but if the animal was designated, Hamafrish Moislan Nazirusay, someone designates money for his Nazirus, which means for the sacrifices. So if it's not specified, so you're not supposed to have personal benefit from it, but there's also not mi'ila if you do have benefit from it, because it's considered a sacrifice of lesser holiness, because part of that is a shlamim, which there's no mi'ila on the shlamim until after it's slaughtered, before the blood is sprinkled. But otherwise, there's no mi'ila on the shlamim. Mace, let's say he passed away and the money was unspecified, so then yipul nedava. Then it just goes to the donation, like we said before in that other case. Mois mefurash, and let's say it is specified. So the mechatas yelech le'amamelech, the mechatas, the money of the chatas that has to go into the salt sea. You're not supposed to have benefit from it, and if you do, it's not considered mi'ila. The me'ayla, the burnt offering, elevation offering, gaviyo ayla, that's brought as an ayla. Ma'ila mem, and there is mi'ila. The shlamim, and this is what we're looking for by quoting this case. He passed away. The money of the shlamim, gaviyo shlamim, it's brought as a shlamim. He has only one day to eat it, like we said in our Mishnah, and there's no bread. So that's a third case where there's no bread on a Nazir, the ram of the Nazir, up to the fourth case.
Yeah. I'm going to just revisit very quickly this concept where you take the money that you can't use and throw it into Yama Melach. Isn't it contrary to Abad's case? I mean,
Yeah.
We asked it a long time ago, but I don't remember the answer.
Yeah. I guess this rule, it's like something that becomes asr b'hana. No one can have any benefit from it. So it really becomes like nothing. It becomes like it has no use.
Hashem says, "I don't need your sacrifice."
Right. Yeah. At least for this. Oh, that's what it means. Okay, good. The money would corrode faster. That's why the salt sea.
Oh, I thought it would float.
I think there would be people there who divers.
How do they get down?
How do they
They
dive
have
in
to have a
after
lot of
people
weight
do
on
this?
their weight belt.
They have to drop it and then come back up. Shalachar kapara, what's the fourth case after atonement? Svarahi, that's just logical. Shalachar amisa matam. What's the reason why after someone dies that you don't bring the loaves? Kapara, because it's not considered, he's not fit to have kapara. Shalachar kapara nami kapara. So after he's atoned, how would it be atoned already? That would mean that he lost his animal, he found it, right? He lost one animal, brings a different animal, and then he finds the first one. What do you do with this one? You just bring it as a shlamim, and you don't have to bring the breads along with it. So why do you have to bring we compare it to the case of lachamisa, just like lachamisa, you just bring it without bread, so too over here. Okay, now it's possible that this is what Shmuel was asking. V'su leka? Shmuel's question. There are no more cases. You only have 4. But there are other cases. B'shar kol shalmi nazir sheshachtin shleikim mitzvasan ksherim. If there was a shalmi nazir that was shechted and it wasn't kosher, it wasn't the right age or something, it's kosher. But the owner needs to bring another sacrifice. In other words, it's still eaten, but the owner needs to bring another sacrifice. And it's eaten for one day, but you don't have to bring the breads, and you don't have to do the zraya, which is the arm that we were discussing about. The Gemara answers, maybe this is the answer that Avua Bar-Ihi answers Shmuel, mitzvasan kachashiv. Those 4 we're talking about when they were done correctly. Shalaika mitzvasan like a chashiv. We weren't discussing ones that were done incorrectly. That was not part of that list. Okay, let's leave it over here. Have a great day, everyone.
So in Jerusalem, I knew somebody who
Thank you.
was dating a girl. on the third date, she shows up with a piece of paper.
Okay.